Hi, I'm Megan, working with horticulture.co.uk, and today I'll be showing you how to divide and repot your Sarracenia. Wintertime is the best time to repot your Sarracenia, as this is when they are dormant. Their dormancy is throughout the wintertime, which often spans between October and they start waking up again in March, just before the warmer weather in spring. And during this time that you will see that most of your Sarracenia will start to die off. And this is by starting going brown or even black at the top and having shriveled lids and pictures. This deadness will then work its way down throughout the entire picture, and you can cut them off during this stage. When they're fully cut down, they may look something like this, and the green leaves that you see left on here are non-carnivorous. These are known as phyllodia, which basically is a non-carnivorous leaves which still photosynthesize over the winter time, but you can keep these on or even cut them off. It's up to you what you prefer. I often just keep some of the shorter ones on just to allow the plants to still photosynthesize and just have a little bit of greenery in the greenhouse during this time. Once they're fully dormant, you can repot them. I often start my repotting from January up until just before March when they're about to wake up. You could do this just before they wake up in spring or when they're fully dormant in winter. With Sarracenia species such as the Leucophylla, I often leave them a little bit longer as their pictures may remain throughout the winter time due to producing the best pictures at the end of the year. So for example, if I was to cut this one back, I'll start at the base of the plant like so and go forth and cut off all of the traps. So this one I'm going to cut down all of the traps, as this is one that I would like to repot, and all these traps have basically browned off and died anyway. This obviously makes them tidier and avoids anything like mould or botrytis at this time of year, especially being in a greenhouse setting where there's obviously less air movement during the winter time. So cut off any of the brown right down to the base where the rhizome is, like so. And what you'll have left is something like that, and it will literally be a cut down plant. This one you can see has got many in the pot, so there's a lot of obviously stumps going on. And you could also probably see by the denting on the pot, it has outgrown its pot, as obviously this dent here is the rhizome as it grows, as the rhizome will grow through the winter time to possibly make the plant bigger for the new year. So this plant is ready to repot, and now it's been cut down, it's a lot easier to repot in this stage as well, as when they have the tall pictures on, it's really hard to obviously keep the pictures intact and repot them. And obviously during the growing season it will be a lot harder and the plant will be actively growing, so it won't want the disturbance as much. So doing it in the winter time is a great time to do it, and obviously you can work easily around the rhizome. So how do you know when to repot your Sarracenia? Well, the best indication is when the plant has outgrown its pot. As I showed before, this will be bulging pots where the rhizome is starting to split the pot, often indicated by the diamond shape. So this is a 1 litre square pot with one of my larger Sarracenia in, and as you can see the pot is a complete diamond shape where the rhizome has pushed through the pot really well, and obviously it's started to grow out, which is a good indicator that it needs repotting into a larger size. Similar to smaller pots, so this one was originally a small plant when I received it, and eventually it's now reached the end of the pot here, so this is where the rhizome stops. It's right at the edge of the pot, and obviously you could do with quite a nice repot into a larger size pot as well. And similar to other large rhizomes such as this one here, which have basically just outgrown their pot. Before that you don't really need to repot if obviously there's not outgrown its pot. It does not matter if roots coming out the bottom. Usually the indicator is to go by the rhizome size before advancing to the next size pot. Okay, so now I'm going to take you through repotting a Sarracenia. This is the Sarracenia that I've chosen to repot, which is the lovely Leah Wilson, which is a very beautiful large growing Sarracenia, and as you can see has been fully cut back for the winter time. It's got a very large rhizome here, and I will be upgrading its pot likely to a 1 litre pot. So with the Sarracenia I often go obviously have the larger pots, as I have a lot more Sarracenia, which means I can advance into larger size specimen pots. So this is often the largest pot that I'll go up to, which is a 2 litre pot, but sometimes I'll even venture into 3s and even up to 5 litres, depending on whether I want to use the plant as either a show plant or something just to make a little bit more of a display and let the rhizome grow a lot larger. So the first thing you're going to do is try and tease the plant out of the pot. So when the rhizome has grown to the edge of the pot, it is a little bit harder, as obviously they have really wedged themselves in there. So it might take a little bit of an extra work, like so. So the root system of the Sarracenia, as you can see, looks absolutely lovely here. Many fibrous and advantageous roots. And the first thing you're going to do is slowly break up the root system, just to kind of allow it to be a bit more free. And again, this is harder, obviously more the Sarracenia is pot bound, but simply just start breaking it away gently. And you'll be able to also see the size of the rhizome when you're doing this. Okay, once you've finally broke away all the soil and the roots are loose at the base of the plant, you can see the healthy rhizome, which is often pink or white in colour. There shouldn't be any browning at all to it. And as you can see, this one is a lovely, healthy 2 rhizomes. So there's one at the base here, as you can see, that's growing. And the main one is this big chunky one here, which is a flowering, mature size plant. So quite an old plant that I've had for a few years now. And the swollen bud at the top often means that it will flower this year. And I expect it to do so, as it's flowered for many years. And it's a great plant to pollinate from. So I won't be dividing this one up, as the Leah Wilson makes a fabulous display. And I'd like to keep, obviously it is a nice show plant. So I basically start off by comparing the plant size to the pot size. So as you can see here, by placing it in the pot, it's got a lot more room as the rhizome grows this way. So I often put them in the corner like this, in the diamond shape, so in the far corner of one side, to allow it to grow to the other side. So I'm going to pick this 1 litre pot, and this is how I'll be placing it once in there. So I'm just going to make up a compost mix, and I'll show you how to repot. Okay, so now to repot the Sarracenia. So this is the mix I'm using, and this mix is peat, perlite, dried sphagnum moss and pine bark. So very similar to my Venus flytrap mix, but the only addition I add to this one is the pine bark, as Sarracenia I found work quite nicely with the pine bark, and again it bulks the media up a bit, so it's another peat reduced mixed. And I'm simply going to select my 1 litre pot and take my plant. And I pot up my Sarracenia in a very similar way to that of Venus flytraps. So once again, I scoop a bit of the media down the side and place the plant in, like so. Sarracenia a bit easier to grip than Venus flytraps, because again, the same method, I will hold it like that in the pot. So I could use one hand scooping up the media and the other hand obviously holding the plant. So I simply start by placing the media around the plant and pushing it in as I go. And once again, you don't want to compact it too much so it doesn't allow root growth, but you might want to make sure it gets down into all the crevices, like so. And then once you've put enough media in, you should be able to hold the plant or the pot up like that without needing to hold the plant anymore. So when you're doing the Sarracenia, you don't want to be burying the rhizome. The rhizome wants to be sitting on the surface like this. And you can continue putting the media around the top so it fills to the top of the level of the pot. And just continue all the way around. Like so. And it is that simple. So as you can see, I filled up to the top of the pot. The rhizome is exposed at the top, with obviously the bud growing outwards. And even the little one, even though it's got a little bit of compost over the top of it, that will wash off when you water it. So I will simply then overhead water it and then allow the water to be soaked up by the plant. And that is it for your Sarracenia repotting. Very easy and simple task. And all you're going to do now is get the label before, which I've just rewrote with Sharpie just so it was not fading anymore, and place it in the pot. And like that, that's how you repot the Sarracenia. Okay, so now I'm going to go through the process of dividing up Sarracenia. So here I've got my Sarracenia alata black tube, which is a really nice, tall, slender growing tube, which is really dark in colour. So this one's a really nice grower as well, and as you can see, it does need a repot due to the bulge, as I showed earlier. And it's got 3 rhizomes that I can visibly see here. So taking it out, hopefully I'll be able to divide some of these side bits. So the same process is getting it out of the pot. So by squeezing the pot, you just ease it out gently, while slowly pulling on it at the same time to try and coax it out. you go. So as you can see, it's very well rooted in there as the rhizome was pushing up against the pot here. But once again, you can see the healthy rhizome, which is pink or whitish in colour. So you can see lots of new growth as well. And same as before, you're going to take all of the moss and the dirt away from the root system. Okay, once you've divided it up, this is what you should have left behind. So taking the moss off so you can visibly see the rhizomes. So the one that I'm going to try and attempt to take off is this one on the side here. As you can see, it is quite loose away from the plant already. And this is the main rhizome here. And there's also a little side bit, but for now I'm just going to attempt to take the larger division off. So there's two ways of doing this. You could either cut it, and you'll be cutting it at the tail end of the rhizome where it joins the back of the main rhizome here. Or you can simply rip it by getting your two thumbs like this in a V shape where the rhizome sits apart, and by tugging. Your aim by doing this is keeping the rhizome intact with some of the root system, and obviously not to rip it completely. So I like to just go for a quick snap like so. And it doesn't matter if you're too rough with these, they honestly are still fine. It's not going to affect the plant. And by doing a simple rip like that, you can see the break in the rhizome there. And you're very gently, this is only the hardest bit, is taking the roots apart without ripping them completely from the plant, as they'll be intertangled with the main rhizome. So gently pull it away like that without breaking the roots. And you've got two whole separate plants. So this is the division that we just pulled off here. And as you can see, it's a nice established, quite a large plant as well, which can easily then quickly go into the next pot. And this is the main rhizome, which has still got that side bit, which I'm going to also keep. I'm not going to divide this anymore. But in theory, you could continue and divide this bit off too. But for now, I'm just going to keep this as a main plant. So I've still got quite a big adult plant here. And you're simply going to select your pot. So you can either keep it in the same pot as before. So if I did it with the division, that might fit in quite nicely. As you can see, there's a bit of room at the front. So I'll probably put the division in the same size pot the whole plant was in before. And in theory, even with the broken off bit, I could probably get away, as you can see, by putting it in that size pot as well. So definitely when you're doing dividing, you could obviously see that you reduce the size of the plant, which means you could probably still keep it in the same size pot that you've now got the division. But obviously if I was to keep it together, I would be upgrading it to a 1 litre pot. So using the exact same method as I did to pot them up is exactly how I'll be potting up the divisions. So first of all, if I take the actual division, and I'm going to take my 9cm square pot, and once again I'm going to put a bit of media down the side and bottom just so I can guide the plant in, like so. And then I'm going to hold the back of the rhizome like that at the tail end, just so I can pinch it better and hold the pot. And once again put the media around the plant, pressing gently as I go around. And once again, you should be able to hold the plant up and then finish off the rest. So Sarracenia are probably my favourite thing to repot during the winter time. I really like doing the dividing. You often get quite a lot, especially of the plants that you find most reliable. A little bit like the Alata Black Tube, which I've got here, is a really nice grower. I always seem to be able to divide it within each year. And I've got a couple of these plants now which make quite a nice display. As I said before, I quite like doing the ripping method for obviously the smaller rhizomes, but obviously if I had a larger rhizome like some of the other ones that I've shown you, then I will use my pair of secateurs and simply cut at the base of the rhizome. And you could do either method, whatever you prefer. If you find it easier to cut because the rhizome isn't as loose, some of them are a bit more harder to rip apart, then secateurs are a great bet to go for as well. So just doing the main plant, and once again using the same method. So once again I'm making sure that the rhizome stays out of the pot and you are not burying it at all, like so. And there we go. So as you can see, plenty of growth room at the front as the rhizomes will go out. I could in theory put these into 1 litre pots, but as I've got quite a few of them, I've decided to keep them in the 9cm. But obviously if you were doing it yourself, then it's up to you, and you could do into a 1 litre. And the last thing to do is your labels. So that's the original label, which I'll put back for the parent, and then I've written out a new label which I'll put in the division. So now all that's left to do is I'll water them over the top with a watering can with a rose, let them absorb the water, and then you're good to go. In springtime these will resume growing and be lovely healthy plants. Sarracenia are one of the easiest carnivorous plants to repot, especially if you're new to carnivorous plants and you've never repot one before. The Sarracenia rhizomes, especially in adults, tend to be larger, which are easier to handle when repotting, and they also don't have any traps, which allows you to repot with ease without getting traps filled with soil. They're also very forgiving plants anyway, so they're great for new beginners year round in a greenhouse kind of setting, as they're both beautiful and really easy to grow.